crowning touch to end the year's Sankirtan, however, came not from the newsletter but from Prabhupada himself, who wrote to Keshava, the king of Krishna book distribution. I have been receiving so many reports about how my disciples from the San Francisco temple cannot be surpassed by anyone in distributing my books. Sometimes they're selling as many as 70 Krishna books daily. So if this is true, then certainly when I return to the US, I must come and stay in your temple. By distributing my books profusely, you're giving me great encouragement to translate, and you're all helping me to fulfill the order which Guru Maharaj gave me. So I'm so much grateful to you, and I'm sure Krishna will bless you a million times over for doing this work. I hope that you and all my beloved disciples in San Francisco temple are in a strong, healthy, and jolly mood. Srila Prabhupada ki Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Read from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 6, Chapter 16, entitled King Chitraketu Meets the Lord. Text 47, is it? 46 onwards. Okay, so I'll do the first verse myself. Viditam anantam samastam tavajagad atmano janar iha charitam vigyapyam paramaguru kiyar eva savitur eva kad yotai. O unlimited Supreme Personality of Godhead, whatever a living entity does in this material world is well known to you because you are the Supersoul. In the presence of the sun, there is nothing to be revealed by the light of the glowworm. Similarly, because you know everything, in your presence there is nothing for me to make known. Okay, we can do this together. Namas Tubhyam Bhagavate. Namas Tubhyam Bhagavate. Sakala Jagat Sthiti Layo Dayeshaya. Sakala Jagat Sthiti Layo Dayeshaya. Duravasitatma Gataye. Duravasitatma Gataye. Kuyoginam Bida Paramahamsaya. Kuyoginam Bida Paramahamsaya. Namastubhyam Bhagavate. Sakla Jagat Sthiti Layo Dayeshaya. Duravasi Tatma Gataye. Kuyoginam Bida Paramahamsaya. Namastubhyam Bhagavate. Sakla Jagat Sthiti Layo Dayeshaya. Duravasi Tatma Gataye. Kuyoginam Bida Paramahamsaya. Please chant. Namastubhyam Bhagavate. Sakla Jagat Sthiti Layo Dayeshaya. Duravasi Tatma Gataye. Kuyoginam Bida Paramahamsaya. Namaste Bhagavate. Sakla Jagat Sthiti Layo Dayeshaya. Tatma Gataye. Kuyoginam Bida Paramahamsaya. Nama. All obeisances to be unto you, Bhagavate, your lordship, Sakala, all, Jagat, of the cosmic manifestation, Sthiti, of the maintenance, Laya, dissolution, Vidaya, and creation. Jaya unto the Supreme Lord. Duravasita, impossible to understand. Atmagataye, whose own position. Kuyoginam, of those who are attached to the objects of the senses. Bida, by the false understanding of separateness. Paramahamsaya, unto the Supreme Pure. My dear Lord, you are the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this cosmic manifestation. But persons who are too materialistic and who always see separateness do not have eyes with which to see you. They cannot understand your real position, and therefore they conclude that the cosmic manifestation is independent of your opulence. My Lord, you are the Supreme Pure, and you are full in all six opulences. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Please repeat, my dear Lord. You are the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of the cosmic manifestation. But persons who are too materialistic and who always see separateness do not have eyes with which to see you. They cannot understand your real position, and therefore they conclude that the cosmic manifestation is independent of your opulence. My Lord, you are the Supreme Pure, and you are full in all six opulences. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. With purport, atheistic men think that the cosmic manifestation has come about by chance, by a combination of matter, without reference to God. Materialistic so-called chemists and atheistic philosophers always try to avoid even the name of God in relation to the cosmic manifestation. For them, God's creation is impossible to understand because they are too materialistic. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Paramahamsa, or the Supreme Pure, whereas those who are sinful, being very much attached to material sense enjoyment and therefore engaging in material activities, like asses, are the lowest of men. All their so-called scientific knowledge is null and void because of their atheistic temperament. Thus, they cannot understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Aganatamanda Shyaganjana Slakaya Chakramani Tamina Tasmashi Guruvinama Bakam Gurudi Vachalam Pangam Lagate Garamya Kripatamam Vande Shrimdinitaranam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhanitinanda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare. Dear Lord, you are the creator, maintainer, and annihilator of this cosmic manifestation, but persons who are too materialistic and who always see separateness do not have eyes with which to see you. They cannot understand your real position, and therefore they conclude that the cosmic manifestation is independent of your opulence. My Lord, you are the Supreme Pure, and you are full in all six opulences. Therefore I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. In the Ishopanishad, it is mentioned that Krishna has been fulfilling everyone's desires since time immemorial. So this time immemorial, Prabhupada also uses in connection to defining this term Nityabada. Nityabada means eternally conditioned. And he says that it's actually not eternal because the soul is eternal. We learn that from Bhagavad Gita. What's the first thing Krishna says to Arjuna? Shri Bhagavan Vacha Sochanam Vasochastvam Pragyavram Shibashase Gadasana Gadasam Chanana Shochanti Panditaha. While speaking learned words, you're mourning for that which is not worthy of grief. Those who are wise lament neither for the living nor for the dead. So Krishna is talking about the eternal nature of the soul here. And then the Tvivam Jatuna Sam Tvam Name Janadipana Chivana Bhavishamat Sarvivimataparam. Never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, nor all these kings, nor in the future shall any of us cease to be. So Krishna here is, first of all, he's talking about the eternal nature of the soul, and then he's talking that we actually are eternal individuals. We don't merge into some homogeneous oneness. Sometimes an example is given that if you take a lota into the sea, you're bathing in the sea, and you take a lota and you take that out, then you're separating that water from the ocean. And so the Mayavadis, they say this is just like the jiva becomes separate from the Brahman. But what would cause that jiva to become separated? That would indicate that Maya is greater than Brahman, or the illusion is greater than truth. So actually, there's not just two energies. There's not just the para-prakriti, the superior energy Brahman, and apara-prakriti, or the inferior energy Maya. But there's also the tatastha shakti, the marginal potency, which is the jivas. And the jivas are one in quality with the Lord in that they're eternal, full of bliss and full of knowledge, but they don't have the same potency. They don't have the same quantity. So therefore, just like if you were to analyze, you take a lota of water from the ocean, but you can analyze it and all the cells are actually individual. They're all independent. And so it doesn't actually merge. Interesting. If you ever get to Mayapur, you can see there's two rivers meeting. One is the Ganges, the Ganga, and the other one's the Jalangi. So, and they're different colours, and they meet side by side, and they actually don't mix. You can see a very clear line there. And just as oil and water don't mix, then the living entity doesn't mix with this material energy. We temporarily become under the illusion of the material energy. We become covered, and this is explained also. Kama Esha Krodha Esha Rajaguna Samudbhava, that the living entity comes into contact with the material mode of passion, Rajagun, and as a result, we become afflicted by lust, anger, and greed. And on account of that, then other things come into play, such as madness, illusion, inertia, etc. And Krishna also explains that the three modes of material nature, goodness, passion, and ignorance, sattva, raja, and tamas, are always fighting for supremacy over the living entity. The living entity thinks it has some kind of independence. Sometimes this question is posed, where is the independence if everything is predestined according to our past karma? So what would you think when you think if what we did in the last life already predetermines what's going to happen in this life, then where is the free will? How can we reconcile these two things? Anybody? How can we reconcile that the free will and destiny? If destiny is there, you think, well, what free will do I have? Everything's predetermined. I have no choice. But free will is there. So how can we see free will is there?
Free will is, I suppose, always there. At the point of action, we still have the free will and we still have the choice to how we act or not act. But once we have acted, then we don't have a free will upon that action. And that how we acted then forms our destiny.
Exactly. So what is predetermined is the karma from the previous life, but how we react in the situation when those reactions come. Like, for example, someone may have done some pious activity in the past life, and on account of that, they may get some kind of opulence, just like it's mentioned here. Srila Prabhupada talks about Krishna as the Supreme Bhagavan. Yeah, so it mentions in the verse that Krishna is supreme pure and you are full in 6 opulences. So Bhagavan means full in 6 opulences. So one, by their karma, may get some opulence. They may become a multimillionaire, billionaire. And that would indicate you perhaps they are born with a silver spoon in their mouth, as the saying goes. But it might not be so fortunate for them if they use that all for the wrong thing. They could actually pave the way to next birth being very unhappy situation, inauspicious. So it's not so much what comes your way, it's what you do with it. On the other hand, you could get someone who has got almost nothing, but they give it to Krishna. We had one devotee friend, he passed away a couple of years ago, but he was confined to a wheelchair. Not all his life, but he was for the last 10 years or so. And he had some serious challenges there to overcome, but it didn't stop him being Krishna conscious. And I was thinking, if that was me, I don't know if I would manage as strong as that. Sometimes people are looking at him thinking, oh, he's a bit of an oddball, but he was chanting like anything. And certainly he was a little bit eccentric, but he knew where his devotion was. He was a great devotee of Lord Nityananda and Srimati Vrindadevi. He knew where the mercy was. If you want to get into Vrindavan, you have to get the blessings of Srimati Vrindadevi. If you want to enter into the pastimes of Radha and Krishna, then you have to have a relationship with Lord Nityananda. So these are very important things, and he got that essence. So regardless of what struggles he was there, he was making such a great effort. Although he was maybe not able to physically go about and do so many things, then he did the best he could in his circumstances. And that's what we can do. We try to do the best we can. But it's foolish to think to do like something half measure or, half-hearted and then say, oh, well, I tried my best. We know if we tried our best or not. Sometimes people say I tried my best because it's like, shut up, keep away, don't tell me anything. But we can always do better. And I must say that the day that I had the biggest Sankirtan day in my life, I felt like I could have done double if I was actually more focused. So what happens is the more Krishna conscious you become, then the more you see that actually you're missing so much opportunities. The more you see you're letting time slip through your fingers. Oh, I'm just spacing out here. If I hadn't allowed myself to be distracted, I'd have been more focused, I'd have done more, I'd been able to engage more people. So it's not that when you do more, you begin to think, okay, now I've arrived, I can put my feet up. That's a very dangerous mentality. That leads to apathy, and that leads to Maya. We have to remain vigilant. So even if we're doing our best, Krishna can say, "Oh, very good, but you can do better." But if we want to place a limitation on it and say, "No, that's my best," then we just limit ourselves and we don't find out how amazing the Spirit Soul is. When Lord Chaitanya and his associates were cleaning the Gundicha temple, then they had thought they'd cleaned it, and then Lord Chaitanya, he says, no, there's much more to do. So they had this competition, and the more they were trying to clean, then the more they were able to clean. It's mentioned also in the Shastra that in Vaikuntha, the palaces where Lord Narayan lives, they're not dirty, but the Lakshmis, they're always cleaning them because it's devotional service. That's the thing, it's the endeavour that counts. We're trying to serve the Lord. Even if it appears we've got nothing to offer, or it appears what we're doing is not much use, then we still try to offer something. It's the intention, the devotional endeavour. Like I gave that example before of the time I tried to fix the electric fan when I was at Govardhan. I was staying at Kusum Sarovar. I tried to fix the fan, and in fact, I made it worse. I pulled it apart, cleaned it all up, put it back together again. It was even worse, and it was going like this. And so I thought, I'll just take it away. And then somebody had put it back on the altar and plugged it in, and it was going like that. And I thought, oh, they must have not understood I haven't fixed it. Maybe it was going fast and then it went slow again or something. So I took it away again. And then the old lady who was in charge of the temple, she says, who moved that? And I said, me. She says, why? I says, because it was useless. She says, no, you're useless. Because it's the best we can offer to Giriraj, so we offer that. And I thought, well, that's devotional service. Not that it has to actually be working. It's just, even if it wasn't moving, she'd put it there because just like sometimes we're offering arti and the ghee wick goes out and you can't get it lit again. What do? You just offer manasa. You don't like say, okay, I can't offer it, we'll have to skip that one. No, you just continue offering it as if it's lit. That's how we do it. Of course, not as soon as it goes out, we just give up. We do try to light it, but if we're going to spend 20 minutes trying to light a Giwick and the arty's done and everyone's done their obeisances and they're on to the next part of the program and we're still there with the ghee lamp, then, we have to be practical. Yeah, and being practical means that if we're leading the kirtan, we're watching to see how the arty's going, or if we're doing arty, we're looking to see where's the kirtan going, am I dragging it out? So we're trying to synchronize everything so it finishes together, starts together, finishes together. So this term Bhagavan, 6 opulences. So can anyone name one of them, please? Wealth. Yeah, wealth. Anything else?
Knowledge.
Knowledge. It's 2. 2 down, 4 to go.
Strength.
Strength. Beauty. Huh? Truth? No.
Fame.
Yeah.
Renunciation.
Yeah. Krishna is known for his truth, that's true, but it's not listed as one of the opulences. So if you analyze, people are motivated to try to achieve one or more of these opulences, isn't it? People want to be beautiful, and if they're lucky enough to be beautiful, and of course beauty is a very relative thing. If you walk into a room and it's full of ugly people except for one who's less ugly, then you notice that one who's less ugly. You won't necessarily think that they're beautiful. You'll just think comparatively that one's the pick of the crop. And you see sometimes people, they partner up in such a way as that their partner looks less beautiful than them, so they look, they become the choice if they're looking for a date, isn't it? That's an old trick of the book, that one. Everybody knows that one. And then the person who's ugly thinking they've got a chance because they're with a beautiful person. And this beauty, what is it? It's temporary. Prabhupada says beauty is in the youth. And it even said, even if someone's like a dog, when they're beautiful, when they're young, they're still beautiful. There's some beauty there, comparatively speaking. Even in the different species of life, most of them look quite cute, isn't it? So beauty, people aspire for that, and even if they have it, then they want to maintain it to all sorts of sad degrees. Some of the things they're doing, they're pinning their face back, and then they look like some kind of melted kite or something. And they just like, oh, why don't you just grow gracefully, It's because they think that the body, and they're hoping to live eternally. Stretching your face won't let you live eternally, or extracting some vital organs or some secretions from another living entity. That's not going to lead to auspiciousness. That's bringing bad karma. Some of the extents that people go to. And then what is it? Their happiness is based on that. And if some of them more beautiful is in the room, then they become envious, right? They want to scratch each other's eyes out. They don't necessarily, oh, this person's much more beautiful than me. How often does that happen? And then ultimately their beauty will fail them. And that's very sad, because their happiness was based on that. It was skin deep. And I know one Mataji that she was proud of her beauty, and her sari caught fire and she got very disfigured. And she had to live with that. And she must have got some very deep mercy and strong lesson by Lord Krishna there. And then strength. Someone wants to be very strong. They want to be the strongest person. But that's fine. Someone's competing with you, so you may be the strongest person this year, but someone's chasing your tail and next year. And then also what happens when you're 40 years later, are we still going to be able to maintain all that extra muscle? And I had one friend who was very well built. He was a very good swimmer. I hadn't seen him for a few years, and then I seen him, and all his muscle had turned to fat, and hardly recognized him, and he was a shadow of what he was, and he was quite depressed as well, because he'd put so much effort into maintaining a certain kind of physique. And then when a certain point in time came where he no longer had the impetus to maintain that, and then it changed and it became a source of displeasure. And then fame also, people, they chase lady fame, they call it, right? The lady fame, they chase lady fame. So they get some fame, And when they get that fame, they're desperate to stay in the limelight, desperate to stay in the spotlight. Or sometimes people, they will they'll be in such an illusion that they think they are famous, they think they are well known, and they're not. And ultimately, what is that fame when it will die? How many famous people have been lost in history's oblivion? And then knowledge, how much can we know? And what is knowledge? Sometimes you get people who go to the educational institutions and they become institutionalized. They do one degree, then another degree, then a PhD, then another this and that, and they cannot face real world and go outside and get a job, or go and start a real life. They become institutionalized where they become famous for their erudition, but what is it they're actually becoming knowledgeable in? It's in ignorance. They become well versed in ignorance, in the material energy. And real knowledge is knowledge to discriminate between what is spirit and what is matter. If we can do that, then the material knowledge also has a value. But without that, then it has no real value. All it's doing is keeping us distracted from the real goal of life, which is atato brahma jigyasa. Now that we have this human form of life, it's time to inquire about knowledge of the self. So it's interesting, there's 4 types of persons who do not surrender to Krishna. Can anyone name any 1 or 4 of them?
Gross sense enjoyers.
Yeah, so you've got the mudha. That's the gross sense enjoyer, just like an ass. I think it was Ashish was saying the other day in class that the ass is working hard all day long in the hope to get some grass at the end of the day, but the grass is easily available at the side of the road anyway. But he's been blinkered, he's not allowed to see it, and he's just thinking, I have to just chase this carrot on the end of the stick. At the end of the day, I may get the carrot and I may get some grass. But they work hard to get just the bare necessities of life. And we see this is what's happening. People are studying hard, becoming well qualified, and they're working hard, long hours, spending all their time, giving all their time away, actually, to some unworthy cause. And meanwhile, their life is slipping past. And typically, people, if they work 5 days a week, then they're doing well. Some people have to have 3 jobs. Some people have to work 6, 7 days a week. And for what? Just to get some money so that they can maintain a place to live, some food and some modern conveniences. And when there comes the weekend, they just want to get intoxicated and sleep, so they forget about it, isn't it? Every Sunday morning, it's never again. I'm not going to do that again, headache. By the time it comes Friday, it's like, yes, let's go, enjoy. And then Monday morning, Sunday morning, never again. The Monday morning blues. So this mudha means to work hard for the things which are easily available. And then the other one was called Naradama. Yeah, so Narada means lowest among mankind, not to be confused with Narad Muni. So Narad means the topmost human being, but Narad, the emphasis on the second A, is lowest among human beings. And you wonder why they're lowest amongst human beings, because they're described as having all modern facilities. They have great infrastructure. They may have educational institutions, buildings, roads, hospitals, etc., but they're still considered lowest among mankind. You'd think, well, that doesn't. They seem quite advanced. What's low about them? So why would they be considered lowest among mankind? Yeah. because they don't include Krishna in it. They want to enjoy God's creation without God. So they're actually just termed as thieves. The taking of God's creation, whatever God has given, and saying God doesn't exist and we don't need God because we are God. We are the controllers, and we are your source of knowledge. We are the source of your happiness, and we'll help you to live forever, because one day we'll find out how to, when these people are cryogenically frozen, we'll find out how to bring you back. So just put faith in us, we'll sort it out. And Prabhupada says, trust no future, however pleasant. If there's a bullpen and there's a mad bull in there and he's chained up, and it's quite a short chain, so you think, okay, you'll be safe. So somebody chucks you in there, and see, the only thing is one of the links is missing from the chain. So every time that bull chucks you over the fence, and then we'll throw you back in and say, don't worry, we're looking for that missing link. We'll find it soon. You just stay there. So this is what they're saying, the missing link. Regarding this evolution thing, there's so many historical occasions where they cheated to try to manufacture a missing link. There's a famous Piltdown man, where there was this supposed missing link skull discovered, and it was portrayed as being the missing link to substantiate their theory. But what happened is it was then revealed that it wasn't a missing link of some inter species. It was actually a mixture of different bones from different species to fit a scenario. And the same with the Java man, they did the same again. And so they discredited themselves by doing that. Now, that doesn't mean to say that science is wrong, but it just means that, science means truth. It means that you have a theory and you prove your theory by experiment. So if they can't show the evidence or the experiment, then it still remains a theory. And even Darwin himself said it was only a theory. Close to his deathbed, he said it was only a theory. So he allowed himself to speculate. That's his own words. I allowed myself to speculate. So what people, this Naradama thing is that it's without spiritual consciousness. And then the third type of person that doesn't surrender to Krishna is called Mayaya Pratigyana, which means by illusion. Yeah. So one whose knowledge is stolen by illusion. So they may actually be very knowledgeable, but because it's in the category of ignorance, then it's knowledge about something which is actually not going to alleviate the problems of life. And the Shastra calls these problems as 4 problems, what everyone suffers: Janma, Mrityu, Jara, Vyadi, birth, death, old age, and disease. So no amount of material knowledge can solve these things, but spiritual knowledge will. Prabhupada gives that talk in 1966 in New York City, 26 2nd Avenue. And this person says, the scientists, they're curing diseases. And says, yes, but can they cure disease? Because they cure one disease and something else comes. So just like they're finding, we have these superbugs which are now coming around because people are taking antibiotics for everything. So it comes to the point where the immunity system is actually useless for them. And then when they catch something, there's so many autoimmune diseases coming around now which weren't there before, because they're not allowing the body to do its own thing. And because karma is there, that you cannot stop karma acting. So, and then finally, asuram bhavam ashrita means, professed demons whose intent is destructive, brings destruction upon the world. They don't care for anything else but their own temporary gain, regardless of what kind of results come about on account of that. So these are the 4 types of people who don't surrender to Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada here specifically talks about the about these here. So part of the philosophy is that they think the cosmic manifestation has come about by chance, by combination of matter, and it wasn't so long ago that they had made a hadron collider, where particles, they're trying to simulate the Big Bang in a small way. But of course, there's a big risk with that, because you think, well, what happens if you blow everything up? But then they want to go ahead and do it. So on one hand, they're trying to find how we can live longer. On the other hand, they're taking a risk of doing something which they don't know what the result is going to be. They even admitted themselves. Why would they be allowed to do such a thing if there's such a chance? So the real science is to understand, what is this world? How do I relate to this world? And what is my relation to this world? And our relation is that we're temporary, we're limited, we're constricted in this world by the body and by the atmosphere. But in the spiritual world, we don't have the same limitations imposed upon us. Nobody wants to die. So you could say, well, what about someone who takes their own life? That's because they're not happy, because they want to be blissful. If we were blissful, you don't find happy, blissful people saying, oh, I'm so happy I could commit suicide. They don't say that. That's because they're depressed, they're frustrated, they're despondent. Those things are there. So they think, oh, it can't be any worse. And then it does get worse, actually, because then they have no material body to even a chance to enjoy their senses. They have all the desires, but they have no material body. They've no gross material body. And then they have very much more frustration. So people only think negative like that because they're suffering, but that's not the way to put out the suffering. The way to extinguish the suffering is to have a higher pleasure. Param drisva nivartate. One is able to give up a lower taste by experiencing a higher taste, and then one can be fixed in consciousness. So this takes some time to begin with, and when we take to Krishna consciousness, and maybe some unsteadiness because we still have habits relating to the material world, and we still have some affection for the material world. Even though Maya's kicking us, she's saying, come and give me a hug, and then she'll squeeze the living daylights out of us, and she'll say, jump, I'll catch you, and then she lets you go at the last minute. She lets us down. She's always full of promises, and we believe it because she is the Daivi, she's divine energy of the Lord. She has that potency. We cannot conquer Daivi, Hishaguna Mayi, Mama Maya Duratyaya. We cannot conquer over this divine energy. But if we surrender unto Krishna, Mayam Etam Tarantite, then we can cross over this ocean of material nescience. Because Krishna is a personal, we live in a personal world. If Krishna says to Maya, okay, this one's proved himself, you can back off, let them come. So Maya's like the bouncer to the spiritual world. She's the security guard. You can't sneak your way into the spiritual world. You can't sneak your way in with all your baggage. We have to let it go. She's at the door saying, what's that you got there? I've still got some anarthas here. Oh, well, come back when you finish with them. You can't bring them into the spiritual world. So just like they say with, if your hands are closed, then how can you accept Krishna's mercy with your two hands? What can you hold on to if Krishna wants to take everything away? And if Krishna wants to give you everything with your two hands, what can you hold? So that's in Krishna's hands. And if we learn how to use things in Krishna's service, then he will reciprocate by giving us that. But at the same time, Lord Nityananda, he says that sometimes he will fulfill the desires of the devotees, but if they continue to petition him for desires, then he won't fulfill them because it's not good for them. So sometimes the Lord won't give us the result we're looking for because he cares more about us than just us getting a result. So when we come to Krishna consciousness at first, then we are materialistic. That's how we've been brought up, and that's the influence of the material world. Everything we see is geared towards entrapping us and enticing us, directing us towards material entanglement. So therefore, when we come at first, we don't necessarily see Krishna. Like they say, take darshan of the deities. But actually, the darshan, because what are we really seeing with our conditioned eyes anyway? The darshan is really that we're showing ourselves to the deity, saying, "My dear Lord, thank you for allowing me to see you. This is me, your fallen servant. Please engage me in your service." So we present ourselves in honesty in front of the deities and ask for direction so that we can serve nicely. What's that saying? A sight for sore eyes. Right? You know what that means? It's funny because I always thought it would be the opposite. So, Krishna is known as Paramahamsa. So this term Paramahamsa refers also to the devotees. Sometimes you hear it in the Prema Jani prayers. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parivrajagacharya Statara Srimad. So Jayam Vishnupad. Vishnupad means one who's taking shelter of the lotus feet of Lord Vishnu. Paramahamsa means swan. Param and Hamsa. Hamsa means swan. Just like in Germany, this name is there, Hansel, Hansa. Same thing. You see in European languages, there's remnants of the Sanskrit there. So this a swan, a hamsa, they have the ability to separate a mixture of, if you have a mixture of milk and water, they can separate the milk from the water. I'm not sure which one they drink. Is it the milk or the water? But they can separate it anyway. So Paramahamsa, he's able to do that. He's able to separate spirit from matter. He's able to locate the spirit soul and direct him to take shelter of Krishna. Despite the material coverings a person may have, he can see the spirit soul. Pandita Samadarshana. The Pandit, the greatly learned, a real well-learned person. Prabhupada here is talking about this material knowledge, but the real learned person sees with equal vision a dog eater, a cow, an elephant, a Brahmin. He sees all these different living entities. He doesn't see them as different living entities. He sees them that they're all being animated by the spirit soul. The symptom of soul is consciousness, and that is present in all the living forms. So the soul is there, and that soul can take any one of these forms and has done. So he's Paramahamsa. The Supreme Lord is Paramahamsa, and the devotee who is the representative of the Supreme Lord is Paramahamsa. And Parivrajagacharya means one who traverses the whole earth. It's like parikrama. Vraja means to go, like mukta sangha param vrajet. This Kali Yuga, it's an ocean of faults, but it's wonderful that simply by chanting the holy names of the Lord, one can be promoted to the spiritual world. Mukta sangha param vrajet. Parivrajagacharya. Acharya means spiritual master, one who teaches by example. So this is the great fortune that we have, that we see the life of Srila Prabhupada from his disciples' words, from the lectures, tapes, writings of Srila Prabhupada, and from those persons who directly associated with Srila Prabhupada. So Prabhupada makes this point that all their so-called scientific knowledge is null and void because of their atheistic temperament. So he's not saying that knowledge is null and void, but because of their atheistic temperament. So if one is scientific and they create something nice, like obviously it took science to create a microphone, mic stand, cables, speakers, electricity, You know, we're not such big hypocrites who would sit here criticising the scientists while driving about in cars, using microphones, using computers. You know, that would just be hypocritical, wouldn't it? That'd be foolish. I was in South Africa once. It was Rath Yatra time, and Jayadvaita Maharaj was hosting the questions and answers tent, and someone gave him a question. It says, Swamiji, you're always criticizing scientists, but you use so many things, you know, like cars, phones, etc. He says, yes, we are always criticizing the scientists, and we do use cars, phones, airplanes, etc., because somebody has to do some good for them. So this is called Agyata Sukriti. We're engaging their efforts in service to Krishna, and they get benefit from that. So the devotees are always trying to be a well-wisher, not that we're thinking we're superior, but we're thinking, this is some nice thing that they've created. Let me use this in Krishna's service. Like Prabhupada used a dictaphone, and they said that's spiritual because we're using it for translating Srimad Bhagavatam. So spiritual life is quite a practical thing. The purpose behind it, if it's used in devotional service, then it's called tadiya. Just like one's body, that is called tadiya. And the possessions you have there tadiya, they're to be used, and it's that which is related. And Lord Shiva, he asks the question, I forget the Sanskrit, but he asks, he asks Lord Vishnu, what is the most dear thing? Is that the conversation? Is it Shiva and Vishnu? No, it's Parvati and Vishnu, Parvati and Shiva. She asks him, what is the most dear thing? And he says, Lord Vishnu, but dearer than that is tadiya. I forget the verse, but because that which is related to the Lord is even more dear. And primarily that which is related to the Lord is the Lord's devotees, the Lord's paraphernalia. That's why we ask the devotees, when you're serving the deities on the altar, don't be in a mode of passion and drop all the items because this is the Lord's paraphernalia. Same with the mridanga. We don't just like put our feet up on it, or we don't just like use the Srimad Bhagavatam to prop up a table leg if it's a bit short. You know, that would be aparad, that would be offensive. Aparad. This word aparad, like the word radha, aradananam sarvisham. So radha means worship. The topmost devotee is Radharani. And arada or aparada means the opposite of worship, to offend. So worship means to give like utmost respect and reverence and service, and the opposite is to be inimical and try to cause harm. That's called aparad. So this is what we should avoid. We should learn how to avoid aparad and engage in aradananam sarvesham. I think that was part of that verse as well. Vishnu. That's it, Devi, because he's speaking to Parvati. She's asking, what's the topmost worshipable thing? That's what it is. It's coming back now. You'll find many verses like that, very wonderful verses and teachings of Lord Chaitanya. A wonderful book. Prabhupada says, teachings of Lord Chaitanya is non-different from Bhagavad Gita, because Gita was spoken by Krishna, and teachings of Lord Chaitanya is the teachings of Lord Sri Krishna Chaitanya. Lord Chaitanya is Krishna, non-different directly. And it's a very good book to read if you want to understand how to preach Krishna consciousness in different circumstances, because there's many nice verses there to learn and much nice philosophy. So because, it's interesting because Chitraketu Maharaj is making some glorifications of the Lord. You're the supreme pure, you're full in six opulences, etc., etc. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. Not just like, well, you look a bit different, you're blue and you've got 4 arms, okay, I offer my obeisance to you. He's actually stating in knowledge why he's offering obeisances. It's not just some blind following, it's because you're Bhagavan. So therefore, he offers his respectful obeisances. Typically, if someone is very elevated, we see with Lord Brahma, when he made some offense against Krishna, then when he became aware of that, he paid obeisances and then he circumambulated Krishna in a clockwise fashion, just like we do Tulsi Puja, Tulsi Arti. And we circumambulate Tulsi because by doing so we're showing great respect. And it's done in a clockwise fashion. You don't go around in the anti-clockwise, that's showing opposite, that's disrespect. So it's Prabhupada didn't encourage us to be blind followers. He wants us to understand who is Krishna. And therefore we have to read Krishna book if we want to understand who is Krishna. Philosophy in the morning and Leela at night time, Prabhupada says, don't read Bhagavad Gita, heavy philosophy before you go to bed. Read Krishna book, read Prabhupada, Leela, Amrita, etc. And philosophy is at earlier times in the day. After a hard day's work, you get the reward of being entertained by Krishna's wonderful pastimes. And in seeing how Krishna is, when you read Krishna book, you think either someone's got some infinitely amazing imagination, or this couldn't be imagined. It's so concise, the knowledge in there, and you couldn't come up with that yourself. And I must admit also, before I joined the temple, a friend of mine visited, and he joined, and he sent me a Krishna book, and it happened to be part 2 that he sent me first. And being a Tamas Gun devotee, I was still in my bed when the post arrived, and my mother brought the post up, and it was Krishna book, and I sat in bed practically all day just reading it. And mother said, "No, you're not going to get up." I said, "Yeah, just one more chapter." And then I wrote to him and says, "I need volume 1." And I just, when Prabhupada said that these pictures are windows into the spiritual world, it's definitely the case. You read the book and then you see the picture and you think, wow, amazing. It's beyond cosmic. So Krishna, it means all attractive. And by reading Krishna's pastimes, we become attracted. Sometimes people say, "Oh, why did you join the temple?" And we can say, "Oh, this, that, the next thing." But really, it was Krishna attracted us. And thankfully, we became attracted. So let's just keep in that fire and keep going forward. And in due course of time, all the baggage will be left behind. And at the end of the day, we'll be able to step over this, what was previously an ocean of material desires, an ocean of nescience. It will simply be like the water contained within the hoof print of a calf. We'll be able to step over it very easily. Any questions or comments? Yes, no, very good. Okay. Iskon Gurvinda ki, Prabhupada ki, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki, Nitai Gaur Premanande.